This is the Giraffes Don't Eat Steak podcast, a show that brings you marketing stories, tips, hints, and much more. A treat for those who want to succeed in business or marketers who just want to learn. Hello, Alex.
Hello, how are you doing?
I am good. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Raining as just another little weather report because I feel like people enjoy it. I've had a few people say it's been really interesting to hear the differences in the weather, and normally it's always sunny here, but it's not. It's been raining for like 2, 3 days straight.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's actually quite nice. It makes I don't want to say this because it makes me sound like maybe I'm not being appreciative of the sun, but when you get too much of something, you want a little bit of something else. I guess it's like in the UK, you get too much rain and you want a bit of sun.
Why does that
Here,
sound like an excuse guys use to cheat?
what do you mean? Well, that is coming from, I don't know where that's coming from.
Sorry, I don't know where it's coming from, but that's just the first thing that came to my mind when you said that.
Do we need to have a therapy session
No,
about your experiences,
no,
Erica?
let's not have therapy session. I take it back. I take it back.
Well, you know.
Well, it's raining here as well, but we had the most beautiful, beautiful, beautiful sunny weekend. Oh my goodness, it was unbelievably beautiful. But
I heard
yes,
it
back
has
to the
gone
rain,
back to normal.
back to normal. So I think that was summer. I think, rah, we had our summer, all 3 days of it. Woohoo!
And I have great hope for in trust in the UK weather to bring a lovely summer.
Okay, good.
But the good thing about the UK is it's a great place for, guess what? Photography. Because we have such dramatic weather.
Okay, that's quite a stretch, but okay, we'll go with it. I can say, luckily, there was some sun last week because I actually had some photos done. Can you believe it? And some of them were outside. So, whew, thank goodness it wasn't raining. And you know how much I hate having my photo taken, but I had some feedback. I think I've shared with you, Alex, that I got some feedback that the images on our website make us look cold, and teachery was the word that I was told, that we look teachery. And actually, once you meet us, you know we're nothing teachery at all.
Mhm.
So I thought I'd get some photos done. But you are the guru of photography, not me. So, what do you think, Alex, about good photography on websites and in socials?
It's a really interesting topic, and it's something it's actually very difficult because especially if you're doing the website yourself and you're choosing the photos yourself, because we all have an internal bias,
Yeah,
and what we see is almost all the time very different to what other people see.
that's true.
And so, for example, when I take a photo and I think, oh, I look good, I like that, other people might look at it and think that doesn't actually that's not how I see you. That's not how I feel you're not representing yourself properly like that. But then I think that can be built upon all sorts of different levels of insecurities, and you think, um, I like this because it makes me look like I'm put myself in a safe little box or something, and I can't be judged or something for another reason, for something that I might have an insecurity about. So I think creating a website that really, if we're talking about our case, for example, where it's a small business and it's not a large business, we have lots of different people on it's all about us and people buy into us,
Yeah,
then it's really important to convey our personalities. That I think is a really difficult one, and we've done it ourselves, and we've seen that it's been a challenge, and we've seen that people have said, oh, you look teachery, and we don't identify as teachery, but when we look at those photos we think, oh, we look good in those photos. But if it's not bringing across the right vibe, then that just proves the point that I'm saying. It's very difficult to see yourself from the outside perspective.
Yeah, that's true. So let's start with the easy question. Stock photography versus taking full-on pictures. What do you think?
Well, they both have their place for
Okay.
sure. Um, and again, it's depending on a lot on your product type, product or service. For example, it's a very product-based um, business. I think it probably lends a little bit more to some. Okay, this is a difficult one. Let me just recalculate my thoughts here.
Well, let's do it easy. Would you use stock imagery?
Yeah, I would use stock imagery, but I would try to
Okay.
not. I think there needs to be a good mix. I think when you have a website that's complete stock imagery, it's obvious what it
It
is.
is obvious, right?
And you do lose a lot of authenticity. I think you can find a good mix. I think it's quite hard in some scenarios to get photos, original photos. It could be, for example, I don't know, part of a manufacturing process, and maybe you don't have a photo of something inside of in a factory if it's a product
Yeah.
that you want, but you do have some photos of your team in the office, and sometimes you might need to make a good combination between the two.
Yeah.
In the import, it's also a question of where in the website. I think on your homepage, on your hero image, in that particular area, I think it's really important because that's where you need to grab the attention of your audience, and having a section that is very authentic and displays your personality. I think that's really, really crucial. Maybe once you dive deeper into product pages, you can maybe use some stock images just to fill out some of your design.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. And again, I suppose it's also how personal your business is. The bigger your business and the more it's a brand name and less about a person. So if you're talking a massive company like an insurance company, for example, the the people are less visible than the brand. And so therefore it's probably easier to use stock imagery because you talk insurance, you have images of insurance documentation or fires or whatever you're insuring, cars, watches. It's easier to go stock. But the smaller your company and the more it is about you, and especially if you're a service business, you
Mm,
probably do need to have more pictures of you, whether you like it or not. People want to
yeah,
see the person that they're dealing with.
yeah,
And that's probably where we struggle because we don't like pictures of ourselves.
yeah,
But people want to see pictures of us, right? They want to know who we are and want to get a
yeah.
feel for what it's going to be like to work with us. So that's what it is. So I think maybe that's another distinction is how close is the person to the client? If there's huge gaps,
I agree. It's like if you, I don't know, let's say, well, we were talking about therapists at the beginning of this session. That's a very personal business, and
yeah,
if you have just have your own personal website as a therapist, you don't want to have random stock photos of random people doing therapy, because let's be honest, people buy when you're getting a therapist, you want to feel someone that you have some kind of connection with. You want to feel an affiliation with them. Having completely unrelated or stock photos that is a completely different person will be putting across a different vibe, and that's not your vibe, and there'll be a huge disconnect. But I like your example of larger businesses. If you had a huge insurance company, at some point how obvious a stock photo is becomes less obvious as the company and brand become bigger, and it's more of a focus around the brand rather than the people.
absolutely. But then again, if you're Coca-Cola, you only want pictures of your Coca-Cola, right? You're not going to go and put some
So,
random stock
so
images of something else on there.
so weird that you said Coca-Cola because I was thinking exactly the same.
Were you?
I was going because I was going to say, yeah, like Coca-Cola, but I, in my head, I was like, no, actually, I'm not going to say Coca-Cola because I know they do a huge amount of original work. In fact, I think they only do
They
original
must
work.
only do original work.
Yeah.
I mean, because you have to have a Coke in it. I mean, they cannot. How can you have a brand like Coca? In fact, we should go and look at their website now and make sure. But how do you have a brand and what have photoshopped
Yeah.
logos on random bottles? It doesn't even
Yeah.
make sense, right? Although they've
Yeah.
got the budget. Come on, they've got the
Yeah.
budget.
I think they do have a few pennies to spare. But I think just as talking about this, so I think I just wanted to clarify my point about the stock versus the personal one. I think in
Mm,
an ideal world, we're going to be using original material
yeah,
throughout your branding, throughout the website, throughout any of your materials. But I know that's not realistic
yeah.
for many businesses for multiple reasons, for cost reasons, for
Time.
the time, for location, the fact if they have a small business, maybe it's just one person running the business, they don't actually have a big team or an office to or anything to take those photos, and they need to have that combination of them.
Yeah.
But
Rain in the UK. It's always raining. You can't really do outside shots often.
but sometimes you get really dramatic lighting in the UK. You don't want to take photos in direct sunlight. That's the thing. So you want photos where the sun isn't completely high. So the UK, because of the where we are, we don't have the sun always above us. It's quite nice. You get some nice lighting in the morning and the evening. So it's a great place for photography. But yeah, I think the what's the word called the optimum scenario is pure originality throughout all of your branding, and that covers everything from your color palettes to your messaging to your imagery, to your designs. But there is an element of compromise that we need to take into account due to those maybe lack of resources and availability, as we were discussing.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean so. I mean, there's a huge amount of stock imagery, and you can be very selective with it to find stuff that still fits within your brand vibe. And if you're doing a mix between your original shots and stock imagery, you can find a style that is similar. So, for example, if it's purely black and white, you can find black and white imagery. You can find if it's has a particular tone to the color to the photography, then you can keep the same tone throughout, even though they're not by the same photographer and they're not original. You
Yeah.
can still keep have a level of consistency.
No, that's true. And now the actual photos. Now we've gone through stock versus original. Now the actual photos. I struggled. I struggled, number one, with a fake smile because I I struggle to smile on demand. When someone says smile, it it's it's generally not a genuine smile then. It's a fake one. And the second part of it is the posing. I struggled with the posing. When someone says like lean against the wall and cross your arms. I've never ever in my entire life ever leaned against the wall and crossed my arms.
Yeah.
Is that naturally me? I don't know. But then the
It,
photo didn't look bad, right? So yeah, it's an interesting. You got to trust your cameraman, I guess.
yeah, it's really if you're not used to it for one, or just not naturally comfortable in front of the camera, it's really difficult and it's very intimidating. And all of a sudden, I don't know about you, when I'm doing it, all of a sudden, all of the insecurities I have about myself, I can it feels like they're being amplified by a million when the camera comes on me and or whatever positions or movements or whatever I'm like, no.
Yeah. So let's talk about choosing a photographer because I think you probably have some good tips for us there. The way I chose my photographer is probably not the best way, but anyway, this is me. is it was an ad that popped up at 3 a.m. while I was scrolling, right? That's usually how I end up doing stuff. But and the messaging was right. The messaging was about, do you want to look more professional in your images? Do you want, and that's where my head was. I was churning around because I got this teachery comment. The whole authentic, professional, those words resonated. I was like, yeah, why not? Click, right? But if you're not me and you do things in a more structured way, how do you suggest people go about shopping around for a photographer?
Um, Personally, the first thing I always do is have a look at their gallery and to see if it's the style I like. Every photographer has their own style. Even if they have a million different clients who want a million different types of a million different scenarios in the photography, you can still see that there's a particular style going through the photographer's work. And so for me, that's my first port of call. Is their style matching with the style that I have in my mind for my photos?
Okay.
Um, then the other one is, for me, I would go visual, then I would go messaging. So I think you're the other way around. You probably go messaging. Actually, you probably just get done by messaging, I
I
think.
was, yeah, I didn't even look at visual, to be honest. But
Yeah.
I've also got two actually. The messaging was the first one, so it resonated with what I was looking for. But the second one was personality fit. Like we had a call, right? And we had a chat, and I could feel whether that is going to work because is someone who's going to relax me? Are we going to have fun? Like, are we going to have fun on the day, or is it going to be just painful? Like someone who's just going to go here, sit here, go there. That's going to just annoy me because that doesn't work. So there was that is my second one was
Yeah.
how is because it gave me a feeling for how the actual shoot was going to be. Was it going to be really? I mean, it's still bad. I didn't enjoy it, but the levels of badness. Does that make sense? Like,
But I think I mean, in your case, it's very different because you were going for a one-on-one photography shoot. You were doing it for you personally. Well,
yeah,
I mean, it was just you in the photo shoot. But if I'm a marketing manager and I need to find a photographer for my company of 40, 50 people who we all need corporate headshots. Again, so I'm going to have a look to see if this particular style they have matches with my brand. Okay, it's not going to be a perfect match, but something I feel like is a good fit for our brand personality and the imagery that we currently already are using and our
yeah.
brand identity. Um,
But
and
don't you think there's still a personality? We've had some photographers on big shoots who have been awful to work with, right? They just
there is, but I feel like when
didn't,
you're having like 40 people, I need to not necessarily just think about myself. I need to think about someone who has a no, it's still personality, but I need to think about, is this a generally acceptable personality? You know, like for me, maybe I want someone who's really fun and bubbly, but for someone else, they might be like, no, I just want, it depends on your bits. Some people like an old corporate that's just, sorry, lots of old white men who just want to stand and do this, and they want the photographer to say, okay, 3, 2, 1, snap, thank you, next. Rather than
but as the marketing manager, and I'm thinking now we had that when we did that building launch, right? When we opened the new building for one of our clients, we had that photographer and we struggled because they didn't take direction well, even though we briefed, look at pictures of this, look at pictures of that. So the personality fit for me is still between myself as marketing manager and what I want the guy to focus on and how good they are at listening to direction, or they're like, no, you're wrong. I want pictures of the food. And I've had at some events where a photographer just loves taking pictures of the food. I'm like, no, I actually wanted the people. I don't care about all the food. Can you stop taking pictures of the food, please?
yeah,
There it is. Although, again, granted, your brief up front is very important, right?
yeah. And I'm agreeing with you about the personality thing. I'm just saying,
Look, it
depends on,
probably is more important to me than you.
yeah, but
We've got different matches.
yeah, but it depends on the type of photography you're doing. If you're just doing very, very corporate headshots and that is it, sometimes you might want to look at just a business that seems really efficient, time efficient, and they're just going to get it done, bish bash bosh. And because you might have just a group of C-suites that aren't at all bothered with this, and you're really forcing it upon them, and you want to make it as less painful as possible. You just want to shove them through like a factory, versus, you know, I'm going on a personal photo shoot, or if you want a roaming photographer at an event, that is different because you, like you said, you want them to have a good connection with you, because then ultimately not going to be working with the people they're taking photos of. They're just roaming and looking around. So for that, yes, because they'll just be working directly with us, and we say, look, less photos of the prawns, more photos of the people who are working over there and the vibe we have in the office. Definitely. But I think, so again, it just depends on what's the purpose of the photographer. If it's going through as like a factory, maybe it's something different to when you're just working with them personally at an event and you're trying to like get a vibe with them to make sure they're capturing the exact atmosphere that you want, and the aspects of your event or whatever it is.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's our tips on photography. Do you want to wrap up with your top 3?
Yeah, just buy me a flight ticket.
You are an
And
awesome photographer.
I'll just do the photography for you.
Actually, I don't know. You wouldn't be, I don't think you'd be a good photographer for me, Alex, but definitely
No,
for
probably
our
not.
clients, I always recommend you.
Yeah, I mean, no, that's fine. Like you can't. That's the whole point, isn't it?
Mm.
You need to find someone that matches with you in if you're doing, you know,
See,
if
for
you,
me, you just make me laugh too much all the time, and then I'll have hundreds of photos with my weird facial expressions, which you love. For some reason, all your favorites are me, but with some weird facial expression. You don't like any of the photos where I look normal.
well, how do you know? Maybe your weird facial expressions, me, my perception of you, and that's you being normal. You know, how dare you? How dare you tell me how I perceive you? How dare you?
Awesome. Right. So, guys, if you're thinking of getting some photos done, we highly recommend it. But think about the photographer and make sure you're happy with the process. Do a proper brief up front, make sure it's thought through. And then I'm saying this, but I'm probably the wrong person. Try and have fun. And you'll be surprised by what you get, right?
Yeah, I think you can have a lot of fun. And I think, yeah, just maybe the key messages, stock imagery can be really, really, if you have the resource and some of the time, I would definitely recommend to try and invest in some original photography and imagery for your branding, as opposed to just jumping in the stock. Stock can be very tempting because there are some really good stock imagery,
Yeah, they are.
but it does just kind of water down your brand a little bit.
Yeah, awesome. Well, let's see what our new website looks like with our new photos. Great chatting to you, Alex, and we'll talk again soon.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye. That wraps up this episode of Giraffes Don't Eat Steak. Thanks for joining us. I hope you found value in our discussion and got some new ideas to apply to your own business. Tune in next week for another round of marketing insights and inspiration. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. We appreciate you listening. Catch you next time on Giraffes Don't Eat Steak.